are they driven, motive for cities undertaking such initiatives, are they driven by citizens' awareness or by visionary leaders? Good question. In the case, so from let's say an Energy Cities Association point of view, we're representing local authorities. We feel that it's the local authorities that are taking lead. That comes from the politicians. Of course, if they're good politicians, it's in a democratic so they're hearing from the citizens, and they always let's say developing plans should be done in a participative way. If that's done correctly, there's the correct interaction between the citizens and key stakeholders, and of course to move forward, especially if you want to be ambitious with carbon figures, you have to do something different. You need to be original. So you need to take risks, and that often is done by politicians. Have you seen strong local reactions to such initiatives? In some cases, yes. What is one of the issues with in local authorities is when you are doing, let's say, communication campaigns, you are competing with the private sector, you are competing with large companies, and basically sometimes the campaigns are going to get let's say less visibility, although that's let's say that yes, the participation can be good, but it remains one of the biggest issues is keeping citizens motivated and being dynamic and changing your approaches and being as professional as a private sector. So it is a big challenge. Let's see. Are there any challenges caused by privatized energy companies of the past decades? I'm struggling to answer that question. Sorry.
So maybe, it's Julian speaking, maybe this question could also be for Steve, because actually the energy sprung model ultimately gets rid of the traditional energy companies, I mean, to a certain extent. So I guess that part of the conditions that need to be set up to have such a good approach is to find a way to have a new conversation with the energy companies, that they are not providing energy simply only, but they can be part of the solution as well. So I suppose that was one of the that was what is meant by this question, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I'm happy to come in on that if folk can hear me. If I successfully unmuted myself, I think one of the issues, obviously, for privatized energy companies is peakiness in demand, is demand that constantly oscillates between very high and very low. So I know that the Dutch have found that the energy companies have been surprisingly open to discussions about low energy housing because it makes their business model, it actually functions quite well with their business model, because they don't need to basically constantly overproduce energy. They don't need such a high generating capacity. So there are some ways in which it can come together with sort of privatized energy companies. I know, but simultaneously there are some problems that it creates, particularly in the UK, when we're looking at rolling out smart meters across the whole country, and they're being delivered by the energy companies. The smart meters are not being delivered probably as effectively as they could be. They're not being pushed out on a regional basis, on a geographic basis. It's purely by who is your energy supplier. So it makes it much harder to build those networks around it. But I think there is some attraction in these programs for energy companies. Obviously, not wholly, because if everyone lives in a literally zero energy house, then they're out of business. But in terms of actually delivering very low energy or lower energy and removing peak demand from the market. That's actually quite attractive to a number of the energy companies.
Okay, thank you, Steve. If I may come back to the question of the strong local reactions to such initiatives, just taking the example of renovation project for social housing, and as in any kind of project, when you have to build or when you have to renovate, you have some resistance. We have to be honest that the resistance from the tenants also, because they don't. If you do it in a traditional way, they don't know how long they will have to be out of their dwellings. They don't know how much it will cost at the end in terms of rent increase and so on. And that's why Energy Sprong is such a promising approach, because it solves the problem of the long duration out of the dwelling during the renovation, and also it provides a guarantee in terms of what people will pay. So what we try to do, what social housing providers try to do, is always to try to build confidence and find the best way to have a social acceptance of the energy transition. And as long as you do it in an effective and in a quick way, then it works. So that's why we really are a big fan of the Transition Zero or Energy Sprong model, and we are looking forward to seeing the first results in the UK and in France as well. So maybe Jan, if you want.
Yeah, I would just like to say that very often energy-related issues, because energy is within, let's say, the realm of engineers, is seen to be quite technical. Actually, the truth being, when it comes to decision-making, decisions are made by normal human beings. A lot of these issues, a lot of the proposals are linked to human dynamics, human behavior. Choosing, I liked Steve's example of the fact that people don't always choose it because of the energy efficiency, but if they get their IKEA kitchen or they get something that they find interesting, these things are very, very important. And for us at Energy Cities, let's say the human dynamics to the energy transition, the people involved are very important, and how the decisions are made are not always based on rational energy savings results. It's more complicated.
Okay. Can I just come in on that as well? I think that's a good point, Ian, but also one of the things I think in terms of that local opposition or reactions to it is one of our members who's very rural has actually found that by making their properties more affordable through having very low energy use, that this actually helps them gain acceptance for new developments in areas where the planning regulation is quite tight, where often new developments are rejected because people don't like the landscape changing, because people can see that these are going to be affordable housing, both in terms of rent and in energy use, but also that they're therefore going to be prioritised for local people as well. So it's not just about where. I think there's also something about joining it to the bigger narrative. It's not just about low energy and it being affordable. It's also about who's going to get to live there, and that I think often helps with the opposition that can naturally come to sort of changes to properties or new development in particular.
Thank you, Steve. Maybe Jan, just to conclude, you want to have a comment on the last question? I mean, do you consider your approach as a bottom-up rather than top-down, or is it both? I feel that I know the answer, but you want to?
I think for energy, let's say the energy transition needs to be bottom up. But if you look at the way, let's say, like something like the Covenant of Mayors does, where you've got something where a mayor is committing to something, it's a bit of a combination. And I think maybe you guys should answer that for the Energy Sprong project as well.
Yes, indeed. I mean, I think we see the relevance and the importance of having, as Steve said, a volume, a necessary volume to be able to move on to this kind of approach, very cost effective. So if you want to reach this amount, this volume, you need indeed to have an aggregation of the needs. You need to have an aggregation of the needs of the different local housing association or all the different stakeholders. So definitely you will end up in having a kind of not top down, but again, it's really aggregation of the needs which will meet the necessary, the skills and the financing and so on and so on. So we really always try to stress at Housing Europe the importance of this aggregation of the different needs, and both for the supply side and the demand side, obviously. And so that's indeed, I think, my answer from that. I don't know if you want to say a word, Steve, before concluding.
I think that's probably a fairly accurate view, and I think obviously the Energiesprong program in particular relies on volume to make it viable for the customer, for the people at the sort of bottom, if you want to view it in that sort of hierarchy. So it is essentially brokered by the contractors and the housing associations. But I think what's crucial to it is the really strong focus on what is the product that we give to the consumer. So rather than so when often traditionally we might talk about these things being bottom up from residents, say, complaining about their high bills or that not being able to heat their home. The actual solution that they get is actually quite top down, because they're just given what is on the contract framework for the association. Whereas this is about the one thing we haven't touched on is the tenant has choice over what the kitchen is like, the typologies, these sorts of things. So it's about using that volume to provide attractive offers and choice to the residents, if that makes sense.
Yes, that's very much indeed. And one last question, because it has just been posted, and it would be a bit rude not to try to comment on it. A general question, interesting one, about the embodied energy, grey energy, and carbon footprint from materials life cycle linked to the refurbishment of dwellings. That's an interesting question, and I must say that at the European level, the European Commission is looking at what they call the circular economy. So how much grey energy you have embodied in the different activities, but I don't know to which level this is a topic for the different stakeholders, particularly when you will look at Energiesprong. Maybe I can give the floor to Steve, whether this is something for concern. Obviously, companies try to find always the best technical solutions, and as I said, what we believe is that you cannot only look at the energy efficiency of a dwelling. You have to look at the whole energy system, and the higher the share of renewable energy, the better it is for the decarbonization of the energy system. So if we have this approach of combining the performance of dwellings and the nature of the energy, then we might solve the question of the circular economy, the embodied energy, and the global carbon footprint, which is very, very, very crucial. So I don't know if you both want to say a word on this. I'm
happy to touch on it. Yeah, it's slightly outside of where we're looking at the moment. One of the things, obviously, is that in many cases these 1 million dwellings we're looking at renovating would most likely within the next 20 or 30 years otherwise be demolished. So the sort of embedded carbon in that cycle is higher, because you're looking at basically removing and reusing and following, as you point out, the circular economy, a very linear economic model where we just take some stuff out of the ground that's been there for a couple of billion years, puts it up for 50 years, and then put it back in the ground again for the next billion years. So there is, and I think Energiesprong starts to make a circle out of that line, but it's not gone all the way there yet. One of the interesting policy ideas that's being explored in the United Kingdom by Green Alliance, who are a consortium of environmental organisations, is this concept of negawatts, so negative watts, where you're basically paying people for energy not used, and you're financially recognizing the value of energy that is not used, that is staying earthed or ungenerated. And so that, I think, is another potential connection that comes into this. I mean, obviously, we have had one of the very large circular economic projects in the UK, which is the London Olympics, was built on One Planet Living principles, which are very close to circular economic principles. So about 98% of the material that was used in the landscaping of that site came from the site itself. Obviously, we didn't get round the problem of where the building materials came from for the actual housing, but it's starting to be considered more. But no, I would say it's not yet central to what's being done with the Energiesprong work, but the direction of travel does seem is definitely linear. It's definitely circular rather than linear. Yes,
indeed. I mean, again, this is something that we at Housing Europe are looking carefully at because the European Commission wants to do something on particularly the waste linked to the demolition or the waste on the energy in the construction sector. So we will looking at that, but again, I mean, the best way would be to have a renewable energy at a higher share. I don't know if you, Jan, want to say a word on this particular point of.
Not from the examples that I had, but yes, if you want to know, it was because I work on the display campaign, which is doing energy certificates, and for a while now, we've been looking into the option of so not just having energy, carbon, and water, but to look into the embodied energy options. But of course, it's easier said than done. So working on that bit is definitely something for the future, but quite complicated. So.
Okay, thank you. And just the point at the end about the payback period. Of course, it's very relevant for our work. We measured that on average since 2005 with the 1.8 million dwellings refurbished, the average payback period was 25 years. And so the key challenge is to make sure that we find financial entities that will agree to have such a long payback period, that will agree to provide low-cost capital funding, because indeed we are in a sector where we work for low-income families. So that's indeed the key challenge. And from what we've seen today, as a matter of conclusion, what we've seen today is that when you have a good combination of innovation, technological innovation, a vision at the local level from local authorities, and a way to improve the skills and the acceptance of the project, then we might have something of very positive in terms of energy transition. And indeed, what we have seen from our side is that yes, we are in a way in a kind of green embarked in a green building revolution. And this green building revolution is the fact that our members refurbished more and more dwellings for their tenants at a high level quality. And innovation is what improves things and what drives the whole process. So we hope that after this webinar you have a better idea of how housing, the local level, and energy challenges are interrelated. And this is actually extremely crucial to understand this when we talk about climate, particularly today at the beginning of the COP21. So I want to thank everybody, the attendees and the panelists. I want to thank Alexander for his very useful collaboration and help. And from my side, I wish you a very pleasant afternoon still here from Brussels. Thank you, everyone.